They gave her a jammed M82, just another rifle. But when she wiped the dust away, she saw it engraved in steel. Whose weapon was this? And why did it feel like the dead sniper was still pulling the trigger? The desert air was dry, full of dust that clung to everything. Elizabeth Carter sat on an overturned crate, her hands black with oil from her rifle. She worked slow, careful, like she had every morning for months. The broken watch on her wrist ticked no more, its cracked face catching the sun. She kept it on anyway. It was the last thing her father gave her before she left home. Across the camp, Corporal Daniels came running. His face was pale, his steps uneven. He carried an M82 Barrett in both arms, its weight dragging him down. "Sergeant Carter," he gasped, though her stripes were one short of the title. Habit made young soldiers look at her that way. "It's jammed." "Won't fire?" Elizabeth stood, brushing dust from her fatigues. The rifle looked battered, scarred by use. She reached for it, and as Daniels handed it over, the morning sun flashed against something on the stock. She froze, an engraving. Words carved with care. "A confirmed kills." Her breath caught. Below the numbers were 2 letters. RK. Elizabeth ran her fingers over the metal. The world around her blurred. She had heard of legends, snipers who carved their place in silence and shadow, but never held one of their weapons. Daniel shifted nervously. "Where did you get this?" she asked. I don't know. Issued yesterday. They said it belonged to someone who didn't make it back." His voice cracked. "They didn't tell me who." The camp noise faded. Elizabeth stared at the weapon. It was more than steel and wood. It carried history. It carried ghosts. She sat, tools spread on the table. The jam was deep, sand grinding in the bolt. She worked the parts loose with slow precision. Her broken watch slid down her wrist as she leaned closer, its dead hands pointing forever to SOTU 17. At last, the bolt gave way. The rifle breathed again. She handed it back. "Keep it clean. This one matters." Daniels nodded, though he didn't understand why her voice trembled. As he walked away, Elizabeth's gaze lingered on the engraving. 305 confirmed. She whispered the letters under her breath, RK, and felt a weight settle on her shoulders. The wind stirred, carrying dust across the camp road. She felt it then, as if the rifle had passed its burden to her. That night, when the stars hung sharp and cold above the tents, Elizabeth dreamed of a valley she had never seen. In the dream, a woman's voice whispered through static, "Hold the line." She woke with sand in her mouth and her empty wallet tucked under her head like a pillow. It smelled faintly of leather and home, and in the dark she realized this rifle had a story that wasn't finished. Elizabeth carried the M82 on her back as the patrol rolled out. The Humvee rattled over the dusty road, every bump shaking through the metal floor. She rested her hand on the rifle stock, tracing the worn edges where fingers had gripped before hers. The engraving pressed against her palm like a brand. Corporal Daniels sat across from her, chewing gum to hide his nerves. "Feels heavy, doesn't it?" he asked. She gave a thin smile. "Heavier than you know." Her broken watch slipped against her skin as the Humvee lurched. Time had stopped for her long ago, but this rifle, it carried someone else's time, someone else's tally of lives taken and lives saved. When they reached the ridge overlooking the valley, Captain Harris ordered them to hold position. Dust rose in thin spirals below, where a small village crouched in silence. The place looked abandoned, but Elizabeth's gut twisted. Shadows moved where no one should be moving. She sat up on a flat rock, the long barrel of the M82 steady beneath her. The scope pulled the world closer. She saw cracked windows, cloth shifting on a rooftop, the glint of metal barrels. "Ambush," she whispered. No one questioned her. The first shot broke the quiet. The recoil hammered her shoulder, but the bullet tore the silence wider. A man crumpled on the rooftop, his rifle clattering beside him. Panic followed, figures scattered like ants in sunlight. The team behind her breathed sharp and quick. Daniels muttered, "Jesus." Elizabeth didn't stop. One shot, then another. Each time her finger pressed the trigger with calm precision. Through the scope she saw dust rise from bricks, saw faces contort in fear, saw bodies fall where they stood. And each time, the engraving burned in her mind. 305 confirmed. By the time the firing ceased, the valley was quiet. Smoke drifted from the rooftops. The patrol had been spared the trap. Elizabeth lowered the rifle. Her hands shook, but not from recoil. She stared at the weapon as if it stared back. This wasn't hers. These kills weren't hers, yet the numbers would grow. Daniels crouched beside her. His gun was gone. "You saved us," she didn't answer. She slid the broken watch higher up her wrist, covering the scar there. The second's hand was frozen, pointing at her like judgment. That night she cleaned the rifle by lantern light. Each piece gleamed, but as she reached for the bolt she found something hidden in the stock, a folded scrap of paper wedged deep inside. She pulled it free. The paper was worn soft with sweat, edges fraying. On it were words written in a neat, firm hand. "If you carry this rifle, you carry me. Don't let the number be the only thing they remember." Elizabeth's throat closed. She folded the paper back carefully, slid it into her empty wallet, and lay staring at the canvas roof of the tent. The sun rose like fire, painting the desert red. Elizabeth climbed into the Humvee, the rifle strapped across her chest. She felt the scrap of paper in her wallet, its words pressing into her like a second heartbeat. The convoy wound toward the ridge. Dust clouds followed, erasing their tracks as if the earth wanted no memory of them. When they reached the high ground, Elizabeth stepped out first. The wind tugged at her sleeves. Brass casings littered the rocks, dull in the light, like bones of some old battle. "This is it," Daniels murmured. Elizabeth knelt, brushing dirt away with her fingers. She found grooves where a rifle had rested, stones blackened by fire. She could almost see her predecessor here, RK lying still, steady, refusing to retreat. She positioned herself in the same hollow. The view stretched wide, the village below, the road twisting like a scar. The place breathed menace. Through the scope she saw movement. Farmers? No. Their steps were too careful, too quiet. She marked 3 men, then 4, slipping behind walls. The trap was rebuilding itself, same as before. Her heart pounded. The broken watch on her wrist caught the sun, its cracked glass burning. Time had stopped, yet the moment raced on. "Orders are reconnaissance only," Captain Harris reminded over the radio. Elizabeth's finger tightened on the trigger. She thought of the paper's words. "Don't let the number be the only thing they remember." Then gunfire cracked below. Screams followed. "A lost American patrol pinned in the village," Daniels cursed. "They'll die down there." Elizabeth's lips went dry. She looked at the captain's Humvee, then at the rifle, then at the empty wallet tucked against her chest. Orders said stand down, but conscience whispered otherwise. She set her cheek against the stock. Her scope found the enemy pouring into the street. Her finger hovered on the trigger. The shot rang across the valley. The first fighter collapsed, then another. Chaos spread through the ambushers. Elizabeth fired again and again, the rifle kicking against her shoulder, the sound echoing through the rocks. The American patrol broke cover, sprinting toward safety under her cover fire. She tracked the enemy with cold focus, every squeeze of the trigger a choice she could never undo. Daniels fed her fresh magazines. His hands shook. "Keep going," he urged. Elizabeth's broken watch dug into her skin with every movement as if it wanted to remind her. Time may stop, but choices do not. The village filled with smoke. The enemy scattered, retreating into alleys. Silence crept back, heavy and raw. Elizabeth lowered the rifle. Her chest heaved. The engraving caught the sun, 305 confirmed. She wondered what the count was now. The radio hissed with fury. "Carter, you disobeyed a direct order." Captain Harris's voice cracked, but beneath it came another sound, the patrol leader breathless. "Whoever fired those shots, you saved 12 men today." Elizabeth sat back. Dust clung to her face, mixing with sweat. Her empty wallet lay in the dirt, fallen from her vest. She picked it up, brushing sand from its leather. For a moment she saw herself reflected in its worn surface. Hollow eyes, clenched jaw, the shadow of someone else's legacy. The captain's Humvee roared closer. Boots pounded the ground. Harris's glare burned hotter than the sun. "You crossed a line," he spat. Elizabeth didn't argue. She only touched the scrap of paper hidden in her wallet. Its words hummed inside her. Harris's voice cut sharp. "You'll answer for this." Figures rose from the dunes, dozens of them. Shadows spreading like ink. The enemy had been waiting for them too. Gunfire erupted. Bullets chewed the rocks around Elizabeth. She rolled, pressing the M82 against her shoulder, firing at shapes closing in. Daniels crawled beside her, panic wide in his eyes. "We're surrounded." The captain barked orders, but the desert swallowed his words. Explosions rocked the ridge. Elizabeth's ears rang, but her scope held steady. One by one, she cut through the advancing line. Her broken watch cracked further as a bullet grazed her arm, shattering the glass. Blood smeared across the dead dial. She tore it off, letting it fall to the dirt. The ridge became fire and smoke. Daniel screamed, dragging a wounded man to cover. Elizabeth reloaded, hands moving without thought. The engraving glared at her. 305 confirmed.